It's big, big is small, right? Big is small. Let's see. Just relax. They got it. They got it. This was always here. Yeah. I think this is best whenever you have presenter to have a projector, so people can see it because that screen is way too small to see it. Oh, is it possible to share it? Oh, okay, okay. Hmm. Sure, 5 more minutes, right? Good afternoon. We will be waiting 5 more minutes. No, I'm not boarding it. We're not boarding anything today. No. I sent a reminder, but let's see. Mm. It is what it is. Hello, hello. Um, Thank you, everyone, for coming today. We will start our meeting. Uh, to begin, I would like to present the citywide.
Before we do have to call attendance.
Call attendance. Yeah, I always forgot.
Jonathan Martinez,
Here.
Rosie Moda,
I am present.
thank you. You can mute yourself now. You don't count towards quorum. Sylvia Agosto, Grisel Amador, thank you. Damian Andrade, Jalila Bailey, Joan Body, Esteban Chavez, Jamie Freed, thank you. Nicole Wong, Cynthia Jeffers, Barbara R. Lee, Marilyn Melman, Joanna Romero, Pat Ruiz.
Here, and I don't count for quorum.
Thank you. Kalina Sorma, thank you.
Thank you. Um, I would like to introduce the citywide colorectal cancer control coalition, known as C5. C5 is a group of public health professionals, partners, and researchers dedicated to preventing and controlling colorectal cancer. They advise the New York City Department of Health and provide resources and screenable cancers, including colorectal cancer. Today we have big and small representing that group, and the floor is yours.
Very much. Thank you for welcoming me here. It's my very first C5 presentation. I'm happy to be here with. Oh, am I going out? Is going out? No. So I'm here because no one should die from a preventable cancer. So I want to talk to you today about colorectal screening awareness. I'm going to come over here. So colon cancer is when there are changes in the large intestine, in the lining. It often starts with what we call a polyp. A polyp in itself is not cancerous, but if it's not removed over time, it can become cancerous. So screening is about detecting changes in the colon and then removing any growth. Okay. Unfortunately, colon cancer is common. It's 1 in 23 men will get it and 1 in 25 women. So more than likely somebody you know has had cancer, colon cancer, but you just may not know that. And unfortunately, uh, it's becoming a younger population that's actually getting it. Many of us know that Chadwick Boseman died of colon cancer in his early 40s. It's the third most common cancer and the second deadliest. So the second leading cause of cancer deaths is colon cancer. And like I said, people under 50 are getting it now. So they've actually changed the standards and they're asking that people who are 45 and older get the testing done. And it's more common among ethnic groups, African Americans, Alaskan Natives, and American Indians. So when you look at this bar chart, you see on the left, it's actually the number of cases by race and ethnicity. So when you look, it's pretty much similar among groups, but unfortunately, the higher population, the orange there is the Black population, is actually dying more often from this disease. It's not necessarily genetics, it's access to care, it's follow-up, it's all of those things that make it a barrier. So prevention is the cure, is really important to catch this disease early. Here we have New York City. So about 3,400 cases are reported in New York City a year, and about 1,100 of New Yorkers die. So a third of New Yorkers are dying from this disease. So it's pretty prevalent, and it depends on where you live. So if you look, um, the darker colored areas on the map there show you the incidence of how bad it is in New York City. Oops. Now, you're at higher risk if you have a history of polyps. So my mom had a history. I started getting screened earlier because of her history. Um, thank God they've been negative, but because we screen regularly and get them removed, that has lowered our risk of cancer. If you have a family history of colon cancer or any of these related diseases that are inflammatory bowel disease like ulcerative colitis, and other things, Lynch syndrome, things like that, that put you at a higher risk. So again, screening is important. Now, there are lifestyle factors that can increase your risk also. So just like any other cancer, if you smoke, if you're obese, if you eat a lot of red, meat, processed meat, if you smoke, and also with age, things we cannot control. So as you get older, your risk increases over time. Now, there are symptoms that you want to look for. It's not always, however, you should be keen into whether or not you have blood in the stool, abdominal pain, any change in bowels, any anemias, weight loss. Um, they're not, these are sort of vague symptoms, but you should be aware of and make sure that you see your doctor if you have these kinds of symptoms. So in terms of screening, you have a couple of options. We call colonoscopy the gold standard. It's the gold standard because it not only detects the cancer, but it treats it also. So what happens is you prep for it, you take a solution and clean out your system, and then you're put under anesthesia for maybe 30 to 45 minutes. And then the doctor is able to put a probe through the colon to see if there's any changes. And if they see something, they take it out and then they send it to the lab. So that is the screening and the treatment. And again, it's 95% accuracy rate. So you'll hear your doctor probably push for that option. But some people don't like it. Some people are afraid of anesthesia. But your doctor will screen you to make sure that you're stable for anesthesia. Some people don't like the prep, but it's the best sleep in the world, I promise you. Now, the other option is a stool-based test. So you can do one, you get the sample, return it to your doctor's office, they send it to the lab, and then they test you that way. Now, if that is positive, then you would have the colonoscopy as a follow-up, so they could detect, see what's going on. So the stool test, if it's called a FIT test, that one you have to do every year. There's also one called FIT DNA, or you've probably seen the commercials with the called Cologuard. So that one, they send the test kit to you at home and you do the test and mail it back. That one is good for 3 years. So that one's more accurate and that's a 3-year test. So who should get screened? When you're 45, you should celebrate by going to get your colonoscopy or your stool test. Again, if you have any of those other risk factors that I talked about, you should go earlier. I've been getting mine since my 30s because of my family history. So it does not have to be 45. It can be sooner than that, but certainly by 45. And you continue screening until you're 75. So, and getting diagnosed with colorectal cancer is not a death sentence. It's one of the more treatable cancers, and the early detection is everything. So early detection, there's a 91% survival rate. So again, just because you got a diagnosis does not mean it's the end, but screening is everything. From early screening means you have a manageable condition versus a deadly diagnosis, right? So we want to make sure we stay on top of our screening. It's really important to remember that it's not just about you, it's about your family. So when you take care of yourself, you can take care of others. When you take care of yourself, you're staying here for them. So that's what people really need to remember. The city of New York has resources out here. So if you don't have insurance, you can call 311 and find out what options are available to you. So they do have free screening programs. And so I've left some of these slides so you all can get these resources here. So that's about the Cancer Services Program. Now, at SUNY Downstate, we started listening to our community and realized that there's a lot of fear and stigma about this screening, particularly among men who think that it's a violation of their masculinity to have this exam. And so we wanted to address that and sort of share stories to help other men to understand, you know. And so we've had to have a whole initiative going. And so I wanted to share the video with you. See if it will launch here. Let's see. Wait. Let's see. It worked earlier, of course. Yeah, I don't know what it. Did I do it? I found it. Wait, I just the trees and the. Go back.
You can play and then no.
Let me. Oh, that's. I'm sorry. You saw it a minute ago? Was it there? Oh yeah, no, that's not mine even. I don't even know where that came from. Maybe it is. Okay, let's try this.
Maximize it. Yep. And then right there. No, that one. Yep.
Well, I was handed a nice gal.
so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you for the presentation, and we will open the floor for questions. Um, I can start with the first question. Can you elaborate more on why there's such a disparity on screenings, or if there is any disparities on screenings? Because according to the data, it says that the incidence and mortality is pretty much not much difference in terms of like ethnicities, but is there any disparity on screenings? Who's getting screened for this?
This is where I stand. The difference in screening is due to lack of education and awareness. It's also barriers to care. So in my neighborhood, there may not be, well, there's a lot of fear and stigma. And so if it's not cool to get this procedure, that's what everybody does. So that's what he was telling you is in his family, that was not what we did. It was, being manly about it was not going. And then this is a really great patient. He was so open, and he talked about how he thought there would be blood. And I thought, wow, I didn't think that people would think that. No, there's no blood, but he talked about how he didn't have enough detail to understand what the process was about. And so there's just a lack of education about that and barriers to care. I think that conversation maybe isn't had enough in the office with the provider who only has probably 20 minutes to discuss this. So we realize we have to educate before they even go into the office to want to have that conversation. And so that's what's really contributing to those disparities.
Just a follow-up question on, in terms of data, I think this a topic that we discussed in this committee, that we don't have enough data or up-to-date data. In terms of abstracting data for, let's say, District 7, for Community Board 7, is it possible to get that data? And if yes, how can I go and get the data?
I'm not really familiar with all the details of the city data, but I'm definitely willing to go back and work to get that for you, as much detail as we can, definitely. Yeah.
That would be great. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Anyone else in the public? Jeremy?
I'm going to face the camera so everybody could see my pretty face. So I got screened. I got a colonoscopy when I turned 50. I know I don't look that old. But that's because my health insurance started allowing me to go when I'm 50. But as you said, and I'm with New York City, as you said, the standard is now 45. You said Chadwick Boseman died. I think he was 42. Is there any effort by the city and the state to lower the number so people who work for the city and the state, or even have other health insurances, can get their screenings earlier without paying out of pocket?
So I would think that your insurance would start at 45 now because they've changed those standards within probably the last 5 years. So Chadwick Boseman still would not have been screened as a routine because it's a U.S. task force that makes these recommendations, so he still would have missed it. But again, if you have a family history and you go in and say, listen, this is what's, and my mom, thank God, is good, but she has this history of polyps. And so I go and I've never had an out of pocket. But right now I think it is 45. So yeah, and so, yes, I think unfortunately, if it turns out that the data is showing that it's younger and younger, then they're going to change those standards. Yeah.
I have Pat Ruiz with her hand raised. Pat, please unmute yourself.
Hi, I just wanted to comment as a person that's had colonoscopies for a very, very long time, a procedure that I always hated only because of the prep. The reason I had to have it was I was having a lot of stomach issues. And thank God, the polyps were looked at. It wasn't cancer, but it helped to determine what was causing my stomach issues. And I suffer from I went from diverticulitis to diverticulosis. So even though it wasn't cancer, I was grateful to at least know what was causing my stomach problems. The prep has gotten better for anyone who's interested. Instead of drinking a gallon, you are now drinking, I believe, is two 16-ounce prep. And I believe it's every 2 hours or something, but it's not as bad as it used to be. And it is the best sleep you could have. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you. Yes. Gatorade works well when you mix it. I think what you're referring to may be called split prep. I think this is the new approach that they're doing. So yes, it's getting better. I understand there's a pill some people are talking about. So, they're getting better with this technology, and it's all worth it in the end, Stay close to the toilet and you'll be fine.
Hi, my name is Rosie Velez. I'm glad I came here today. I was not coming, but my daughter invited me. Um, Years back, I have done this like 3 times, and I did get the polyps. Thank God I'm okay. But one thing is that I just found out, and I was about to call my doctor, that it's 10 years if it's at risk, and 10 years if not, something like that.
So your baseline is 10 years. When you go in, then they make a personalized recommendation for you. So if they go in and see polyps, they may say, you know what, come back in 3 years or come back in 5 years. It depends on you and your risk.
Yes, thank you. And also, the prep, I don't like it. And the pills is like, I remember the roosters and the chickens when in my country, this big, but it's the best um, sleep that you could get. Awesome.
Very good sleep. And I always pretend I'm going to be vegetarian after being cleansed. I always pretend that I'm never going to eat another bad thing in it lasts about 2 days, but it's nice while it lasts. Yeah.
What is the percentage of women versus men that actually take the test for that?
Question. I've not studied that. But we know on the street that men just don't want, like if we're calling out of 10 people, you know, the women are going to come in. The women are going to do their test. Men have to be convinced. One of my colleagues was just doing a study, and all she wanted to do was ask why they didn't. They didn't want to answer the phone to answer that because they thought that we are going to ask them about the test. So, yeah, I don't know the percentage to be honest, but I can tell you that as people get older, they're more willing, right? They're more in tune with what their body needs, and they let down a lot of those fears that they had, and they take better care of themselves. We find that the younger folks that are 45 to 50 don't even know they're supposed to be screened, and they just don't comply. So we're, like I said, trying to target that thinking to help them understand, and get more details out about it. So I hope to do a video that shows someone who's going through the process, and prepping and all of that to get more education.
In addition to the video that you just showed, showing one patient's experience, is there something the state or the city health department is considering doing as like an outreach campaign citywide to make that age range know about this, when they should get checked, or maybe even earlier if there's like family history, and if they do, or if are there plans for a citywide campaign, and if there is, it has to be in multiple languages.
Claro que sí. I actually, this video is being translated into Haitian Creole and Spanish, because that's our neighborhood. We have another set I did, we're finishing up, which is Ask the Doctor, basically. And so one of our doctors spoke to us in Creole for that patient population. We're going to do the one in Spanish. So we're trying to do that. I'm not as familiar with the C5. I'm very new to C5. I got in here 3 weeks ago and I was like, yeah, I want to come. I want to come to the home of Inez's Bakery. You know, that's my favorite spot of it. So I have not, but I definitely will share that with you because I think that's so important. So this video was not just about the language, right? So that's part of cultural relevance. It's also talking about what we talk about. So it's about talking about the stigma and, you know, like that's very particular to that population. And so, yes, again, we'll stay connected and I will find out those answers for you to share that because this is very targeted, this group. And so that's what they want to do is make sure to get the word out and however they need to do that.
Any more questions from the public or from the WebEx Zoom? Right. So with that, thank you so much for making the time and energy for presenting our board today. Thank you. And for the next item, it's going to be Brandon, which is you can join me and take a seat with us. I got it.
Thanks.
Let me introduce you. So Brandon Smith is the chair for the Health, Environment, and Social Services Committee. That's correct?
Right,
Yes.
that's right.
Brandon has extensive experience in organizing and executing health fairs, having successfully coordinated multiple events within Brooklyn Community Board 2. And today he will be participating in our session to answer questions and share his insights on how to effectively plan and run a health fair. With that, you can say some words and I can start with some questions.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much. It's a great honor to be here this evening at Community Board 7. It's sort of a surreal experience being at a different health environment or health. Are you environment and social services or you just health?
Health, education, and social services.
Health, education, and social services. So we got the health and the social services. We do health, the environment, social services, and we also do liquor and cannabis licenses all in our committee. But it was quite something. So about 5 years ago, we got to a point where we've been having all of these presentations come to our committee, particularly on issues of maternal health and maternal mortality, and also we had seen a number of common issues in our community where my community in downtown Brooklyn and Fort Greene is a relatively wealthy community, but within that area of wealth, there are these POC community health profile of the entire district really obscures the circumstances that some of these folks live in to the point where we wanted to bring an event out to the community that would be responsive to the needs of some of our neighbors who maybe didn't go to the doctor every year or didn't take advantage of regular care. And let's see, it was about 3 years ago, we started kicking off the health fairs. And we started in a smaller park, and first time you do it, it's not going to be the most successful experience, but the key is to keep going. The key is to keep planning and ensuring that you continue inviting the people back who were part of the first event again and again, and eventually, after a couple of experiences, we really have started to gain traction with our event. We have now a good following of about 100, 200 people who we know will definitely come to the event. And then, the sky's the limit from there because every year we're just kind of moving up on the advertising and marketing of our event to the surrounding community. But, if I were to suggest where do people start in this regard, I think one, it's important for you to think who wants to volunteer to be a part of this effort and to kind of agree on who's going to make the decisions and be kind of the lead planners of the event, and who's going to just be helping out with a few different things. I think what you'll find when you have a group of folks get involved in planning any kind of an event, some folks are going to be really wanting to get involved in every aspect of it, and some folks may be very helpful and they'll just kind of help out here or there. Once you get everybody together, it's helpful to kind of figure out where you want to have the event. Do you want to have it at a park? Do you want to have it on a street? Do you want to have it on a weekday? Do you want to have it on a weekend? Pick a date and a location. That is really the first point that you need to go for. And don't be worried if there are other competing events that are going on. There's always going to be another competing event going on the weekend or day that you choose. What's important is that it's going to be a good day for everybody in your group, and that you have a pretty good chance with the location to be a fairly high traffic location, good chance at good weather if you're doing it outdoors. And from there, you just need to go through the logistics. We've always done ours at different parks. We started at Commodore Barry Park. We're now doing Fort Greene Park. When you encounter working in a park, it's important to get your park permit, and it's important to work with the steward agency that is associated with each park. There's usually a conservancy group or a smaller organization, depending on the size and significance in the park system. And being able to get on the radar of that group, being able to get coordinated with their schedule, being receptive to what that group wants is very key to understanding what you can do in the park. And a lot of times, that group may be able to give you assistance with different things in the park. They usually have some kind of resources there, at least in terms of a couple extra tables or maybe some equipment that you can use, and you get your event together, and it becomes ultimately very successful. I think another important part is to think about what kind of community contacts that you have. Who are the folks who come before your community board for different things? You probably have a general meeting where you have different people present, city agencies, community partners, your local library. All of these people are good folks that you could potentially work with to appear at your event and participate. And because they come out to your community board, they're probably very community minded and excited about doing something like this in the local community. The other thing to think about is if you're going to have an event, you want people to show up. And what I've found, particularly from working in different communities trying to attract interest, is that you can't go into these communities and just say, like, it's really important for you to get your prostate cancer screening, and as a result, we're going to have this big event in your local community. You've got to show up, and you should take advantage of these great health services. Maybe folks on the community board are interested, but people in the community really respond to things like free food, free stuff, giveaways, excitement, music, having a good time. And it's having that kind of atmosphere that is really important to ensuring that you have a successful turnout in your event. And I have spoken for a little bit. I'm happy to stop and take some questions, but that's kind of the initial points to understand.
Thank you. So the way we will be doing this is more like an informal interview, just to really think about for example, like planning and logistics, budget, funding, and other topics that will be relevant for us to really understand in order to start planning ours. And also feel free to ask any questions at any time, any moment of the process. And with that, I would like to start with knowing more about the planning and the vision part of it. How do you assess the specific needs of the community to shape the focus of the health fair?
Well, that's a good question. I think to a certain degree, you probably should have some sense as a community board and a committee as to some of the issues going on in the community. One of the things that we had seen in our committee was that the city health department had done studies of our local community and had produced a community health profile that had um, laid out what were the different risks that were going on. And exactly what I was saying before, they were saying that Brooklyn Heights and Fort Greene are doing great, but missing the fact that there are some really critical problems in different parts of the community. Another important thing to do is you probably have some NYCHA locations somewhere in your district. It's important to go to those meetings and talk to the people there about the kind of health issues that they're interested in. Usually leadership there may have some understanding about different things. And having had those conversations, the things that we learned is that people are not necessarily as intrigued with these hot button themes that you see, like, certain kinds of cancer screenings or more advanced kinds of treatment. People are really interested in getting practical care. They're interested in getting, their eyes checked. They're interested in getting the blood pressure. They're interested in doing things that are very kind of basic in terms of medical care. And the important thing to take from that is really that you can have a basic kind of an event where you have a bunch of people handing out papers of places of information. And, some people who participate are always going to do that kind of thing. But it's important to have like folks who are actually offering screenings and actual services there in the park, because that becomes much more meaningful to the people who participate. So it's speaking to those people, speaking to your NYCHA communities, speaking to other constituencies that are in your community, and understanding. But at a first point, like, I wouldn't spend an inordinate amount of time scoping it out before you start planning your event. I would start planning your event, engage with the local hospitals, try to get as much as you can from the local hospitals, and then listen to what people are saying along the way and bring that up when you're in the meetings with the local hospitals as to try to advocate for what they can provide. Hospitals are going to have a demanding schedule where they have lots of different health fairs that they go to. This is like a whole industry. And in the course of that, on day one, it's important that you make contact several months ahead of time, that you ensure that the hospital is aware of the date of your event. You should have a rain date, so, whatever date that would be. And then you should also you should also try to get a fair amount of asks out to the hospital in your initial query. But the hospital is going to go away and work on that. And while they're working on that, that's when you can be speaking to the community, understanding their needs, and you can always feed the information back to the hospitals that you're working with along the way to try to make sure that they get your requests and actually try to do what they can. And it's not going to be guaranteed that they will, but you try to shoot for the best with everything. And oftentimes we've gotten surprised with how much we've gotten from the local hospitals, because these folks who do this get really excited, and if you give them enough time, they'll try to get as many folks out as possible.
Following with some questions in terms of logistics and execution, how do you handle like permits and other legal and admin requirements for like having your location, like parks and things like that? Can you just go a little more deeper into that process?
Yeah, no, absolutely. The first step is always getting your permit. And that's, if you're doing it in a park, you're getting a permit from the Parks Department. And what I recommend is look up the advocacy group or the community group associated with that park, whichever is the steward of that park. Speak to them first so you can agree on the date with them. Then go and register, get your permit. And when you apply for the permit online, it's $25, and you have to wait in a queue for about a month or so for the Parks Department to do this. to process through the approval. But if you can get on the calendar with the local steward group, they should know whether or not you're going to have the park for the time that you, or the day that you want. And you can wait to get the approval from the Parks Department at their speed. They're going to ask you questions about what you plan to do, and they have a bunch of rules and regulations about things that you cannot do in the park. You can't hang things on different trees. You can't, definitely no drones or balloons or vending things, things like that. But once you answer all of those questions, you normally will get an approval, and you need to get a sound permit from your local NYPD. The local NYPD, in my experience, it's usually, 30 days before the event is their time frame for kind of working on the sound permits. And you get a sound permit and a park permit. Those are the permits that you're going to need if you're going to do an event in the park. If you're going to do an event on the street, you might need you'll need a different permit. And if you want to give away food to any members of the public, you have to have a permit specifically from the Department of Health. But effectively, those are the permits that you would need to get. And I definitely recommend starting early with the park permit and probably the health permit too. It's good to have the health permit if you want to offer the food, because they ask you that question on the park permit application, and you should be ready. So definitely think about that.
Can you talk more about advocacy groups? Like, what do you mean, like, in terms of who will be approaching to test the waters and things like that? Like,
I think first it's identify which park that you want to go to if you're going to do a park. Like Commodore Barry Park, where we first started, there's a group called the Friends of Commodore Barry Park, and they act as a steward of the park. Pretty much every other park has some kind of friends group. It's figuring out who that is. And you can always call the Parks Department if you don't know who that is, or maybe someone in your community board office knows who that would be. And figuring out the people associated with that, usually you can get the people at the Parks Department to make a connection, or your community board office will make the connection. And those are the people that you would then kind of connect with first.
moving on the budget and funding, can you explain more about like how do you get funding, or like who is funding this, or like, for example, like I know that you have like a DJ and things like that. Like how do you go about that?
Yeah. Well, there are certain things that you have to pay for when you do this, and there are certain things that you have the option to pay for. And then there are other things that you don't have to have, but somebody might want to pay for them, and it's nice. What you have to pay for if you're going to do an event like this is some kind of tables and chairs. And it's an experience trying to find a great table and chair provider. I've got a great contact. I'd be happy to share it with you. This guy, the family business, wonderful person. He and his family are absolutely great. They'll give you the 40 tables and 120 chairs for about $800-900, something like that. And that's the one cost that you really have to kind of accomplish for your event. And you want to think when you're getting tables and chairs that you're getting a whole experience there. You have to have somebody to set up the tables. You have to have somebody to break down the tables. You have to have and if you got the table and chair company, you may have to pay them extra to get them to do that. Or you could do what we've done is that we've got these wonderful young men who are associated and women who are associated with the police department. They're the explorers, and they come and they help put up the tables and take them down. It's not very complicated to do this kind of work, and this is the that's the main thing that you have to pay for. Now, getting a DJ is also something that you may have to pay for. Sometimes you may have a relationship with somebody who, wants to do this out of the kindness of their heart for the community. I strongly recommend putting the money up to pay for a DJ. The reason is that when you pay for a service like this, the person is obligated to show up, is obligated to do a competent job, and you kind of, it's hard to do the event if you don't have the DJ working. So that it's a very important expense, and you have to find the funds to do that. At Community Board 2, we started a nonprofit years ago, which wasn't intended for this purpose, but eventually they've been capable to fund us a little bit. Some of us have had to dive into our own pockets to kind of help pull the event together. But looking in your community for different grants and opportunities is always the trick. We had a small business in our community put up the money for our tables and chairs in our first year, which was just based on a personal connection that somebody had. I think it's finding those kind of businesses and experiences in your local community if you can't find it otherwise, and then trying to find a way to string it together. But those are the things that you really have to pay for. Beyond that, like, you got to have flyers, you got to have advertising, and there's that can get kind of expensive also if you go to a service like Kinko's or FedEx or something like that. We were fortunate to get connected a couple of years ago with this this print shop that's a little bit farther away. So I got to drive all the way to I think it's Bedford Stuyvesant or somewhere to get the copies, but they're very low cost, and it's a small business, and they're run by people of color. So really wonderful, great, diverse organization to be associated with, and it's like a third of the cost of FedEx, and that I'd be happy to give you their contact information if you're interested. But I mean, definitely it's been a rewarding experience to think about it, and at the end of the experience, it's always worth the cost. So I definitely recommend if folks have something that they can contribute, or there's a business that can help put up some of the costs, that go out and find that, and see what you can do.
And can you talk more about recruiting and managing volunteers for the event?
Yeah, I certainly can. I mean, there's an incentive or a thought that you need to get a big group of people available to help you with an event like this. I wouldn't say that you necessarily do. I mean, it's nice to have a small group of 5, 6 people at least, or maybe even a few more if you have. And we always welcome as many people who want to get involved in the event as possible. But I don't think that it's the number of people you have beforehand that really make it work. It's really just understanding that on the day of, everybody in the community board should be trying to make a point to attend, and small groups of people maybe can do specific tasks depending upon what their strengths are, what they're interested in. And, some people, maybe that's the only thing they do is they volunteer for 1 hour, helping set up something with the tables and chairs. It's really just listening to what people want, how much they want to be involved. And if somebody wants to have a task, go for it. We definitely, a lot of the work between the conception of the event and the day of the event is finding different vendors and spreading the word to different populations. You're going to need to contact people repeatedly, and it's more important than having a number of people that you just have a good database to make sure, or like a spreadsheet that is shared with everybody so that you can be all on the same page about, who we're waiting to hear from and who's following up with which contacts. And then like on the day of the event, before the day of the event, it's good to have kind of, at least the way we've done it is we've have like a map of where all the vendors are going to be located at the event, and at least allows everything to be fairly well organized.
Can you talk more about the date of the event? Like, how do you go to organize and making sure that everything runs smoothly?
So on the day of the event, it's been you normally will get to set up a little bit early, and I recommend, well, it kind of depends on your population. Like the first year we started at like 10 a.m. and like nobody was there because the people in the community just were not they're not in the mood of going out to the park at 10 in the morning. And in the years that went by, we learned that like 12 o'clock was a good sweet spot. And 12 o'clock, you start the event, but you have the vendors and everybody else show up at like, 10 o'clock. And some of them will show up at 10, some of them will show up close to 11. It's important to make sure the tables and chairs are delivered first. Then the vendors, the vendors as they arrive get appropriately directed to their tables. And then we were able to get a business in the community to pay for everybody to have breakfast, which is a wonderful, nice way for them to get started. And then, kick the event off right on time. What we've done, we've really kind of finally gotten it built out, is that while we've got the event going with all the different vendors, we have kind of an array of different activities that go on throughout our event. We have exercise classes, we've got dance classes, we've got presentations from local schools, we've got a panel discussion about maternal health that occurs, we got some children's activities, we've got a killer magician that the people just love, or the kids just love, and the experience has to be kind of scheduled with a run of the show. And we have the elected officials who show up to speak too. Always a good idea and the strategy we've been going with in this regard is have the school presentations first. So you get all the school children there, you have a good amount of people, and then invite the elected officials about an hour or so into the event so that you already got a good group of people there, the elected officials to speak to when they're ready to speak. And then the panel discussions later in the afternoon, and kind of wrap everything up in the end with the magician. That's been kind of the plan that we've been going on. It's just important that plan get executed. It's you may want to have somebody MC the event and introduce different people who are speaking if you're going to do that kind of thing. You may want to have someone facilitate your panel. That would be an important thing. It's important for the DJ to be clued into what's going on so they know when to start and stop. It's important if you're having presentations to understand who's going to play the music. Will it be the DJ? Will it be the people who are presenting, bringing their own music? And typically you're only allowed to have like one DJ at the event under the standard park permit. I've yet to create a scenario where that gets where you have kind of multiple stages going on, but just understanding how everything logistically works is key to it too. And I think you'll find it's not so much of a problem getting everything broken down, but obviously you'll have to make sure everything gets broken down. Good idea to make sure that you have the NYPD on site just to make sure that things end up being good. Your community affairs office from NYPD is helpful for that. They can also help arrange for parking for people. It's really important that you follow up with them to make sure they do actually put up the signs that say that you're not supposed to park there. And keep in mind, they'll put up the signs, but they do not enforce the parking. So you can't ultimately prevent anyone from parking in the no parking area. Yeah. That's basically what I can say about the day of the event.
Can you talk more about the strategies for promoting and encouraging the community participation? Like, do you use any specific social media or like what is exactly your process on this?
Yeah, so we have a pretty multifaceted process in this regard. We've got the community board office. You know, typically we don't rely on the community board office to do most of the work for this event. But what they will do, and they can do well if they have a good listserv, is, you know, send around information about the event to surrounding community and use their social media to help promote the event. Um, Aside from that, it's important to go to the local neighborhood meetings, you know, the tenant association meetings, the precinct council meetings, any other local community meeting that's going on in your community to get the word out about the event. Um, we've used, we've had a connection to somebody who had a radio program. We went on the radio a few years ago and advertised this, and there were people who showed up who came because they heard the radio program. Um, and look for neighborhood businesses that are next to the park and put up the flyer there. That was another thing that we did that was successful. And I think you get the NYCHA people on board, get them to post the flyers in their place and understand the culture in the NYCHA place that you're going. So you kind of adapt to how they are running their development in terms of how you can promote in that space.
Um, so for the last questions, I just want to understand more about what challenges do you face, at least in the first health fair that you did in your community? Like anything that you, any advice or any challenges that you think is important to consider before starting this process?
Yeah, well, I think I've already gone through a couple of them. One, you know, don't start your event at 10 a.m. That was definitely something that we learned from the first time. Two, you pay for your DJ. That was another thing that we learned from the first go around. And I think three is also just think about what kind of location are you choosing? Are you choosing a location where you're going to get some people who are just passing by during the day? Or is it a rather desolate location where the only people who are going to go there are going to be people that are who've heard about your event and new to go there? You want to have a good mix of both, I think. And that's, you know, part of having a good location. We had a great first year doing it, but, you know, anytime that you're going to do it the first time, there's probably something I didn't think of you'll encounter that you'll learn from. Every year I do this event, we learn something and we try to make it better the following year. So it's an ongoing process, and, you know, it's something that is always a good teaching moment. But the good part is that things have gotten, you know, better over time, and the attendees get more and more every year. The other thing I will say too, which I neglected to mention, is like trying to make sure that the homeless shelters are aware of the information, because, you know, those people could really use some health services in many respects, and would really take advantage of the offerings at your event. We put our flyer out, and we're now doing 5 different languages, so that if people come from a different background, they can read the information and hopefully get interested in signing up.
With that, those are pretty much all my questions, and I will open the floor for the public and anyone online. And
I have Pat Ruiz with her hand raised. Pat, please unmute yourself.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for that presentation. As someone who has done health fairs and large festivals for many, 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 many years, and the community board itself has had, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jeremy, we've had 2 successful waterfront festivals, which,
Ken,
okay, very successful waterfront festivals, which we partnered with Lutheran Medical Center at that time, which is now NYU. Everything that you said is on point, on target. But to me, the one thing has always been budget. Community Board 7 does not have a budget. Um, in my mind, it would be looking for potential sponsors. And like you said, local restaurants that want to donate bagels in the morning. And I know that in our community and on our community board, we have other folks who have done health fairs themselves. I believe Rosie is there. Rosie's with the Lions Club. They have done a very, very successful health fair, and actually they have one coming up soon at OLPH. So we have the folks to do this, but again, what's important is money. I mean, to get a DJ, to get the sound permit, if you're doing it outside in a park, there's liability insurance. There is a lot involved. If you don't want to deal with a rain date, maybe we're safer with doing something indoors where we know whether it's rain or shine, it's going to be a-okay, where we know there's going to be traffic, and the best location, OLPH. But I just wanted to put my 2 cents in because I did, and this is the first I hear, and I'm excited to hear that the board is looking to do something else. And you have talent on your board. And I am willing to help out when it comes to budgeting and, putting it together. You start backwards. So it's something that I'm very familiar with. All right, thanks.
Thank you, Pat, for those words.
So I have similar comments and questions to Pat. Let me start by talking not as the district manager, but as Jeremy Laufer. I'm a big fan of Taya Muller, and I would really advocate for her to get an enormous raise. That said, would you recommend at the beginning, the first couple of years, that we have a standalone event or maybe work with existing events? For example, the NYPD, of course, has National Night Out Against Crime in the park. The Sunset Park bid has the annual Fifth Avenue bid. That might be a way to draw down some of what we need to raise, because they will have a DJ and they will have giveaways and they will have food. Would you recommend early on, in order to establish this, that we work with events that already exist, or would we be better off having a standalone event?
Well, what I can say is I come from the experience of doing a standalone event, so that's what I can really speak to. I think there could be some viable strategy in partnering with National Night Out or one of those big events that that comes into your local community. That's a conversation that you can think about and see if, maybe it makes the most strategic sense to do something like that. But the value you get of kind of sticking out and doing it on your own is that it's always going to be your event. And as the more you get to do these events, the more your event grows, there's always going to be other kind of stakeholders that get involved. And it's nice to have this be our event, I think, because we define from the community board perspective every aspect of everyone who's going to be at this event. And what you'll find as it goes along is that there are a number of different other parties who will come out of the woodwork, and they want to be part of your event as it goes along. And most of them are great community partners who are good folks to have, but others are people who've got a political agenda, or their business, it's like a nonprofit business, but it doesn't, you're wondering exactly what do you do, or it isn't very closely related to health, and those kind of things come up. When it's your event, you can control all of these different things. You can control every single person who participates in that event, and you can be as strict or as liberal as you want in terms of inviting people to be a part, even from like a strategic point of view. That's the kind of thing where if you partner with somebody else, you're always going to have like their aspect of what they want to have involved. And, you'd be surprised what other people think is appropriate to bring to a health fair.
As the district manager, I'm always concerned about conflicts of interest. One of the things, and you mentioned this, and Pat mentioned this, we can't raise money on our own. We would have to have some sort of fiscal conduit, and donations from others. How do you screen for potential conflicts of interest? For example, a restaurant that might want to donate food, but at some point over a couple of years, they would have to come before the community board for a liquor license, for example.
Yeah, I mean, I think for the purpose of the history of our event, we've never had anybody who's been coming before us in any respect be a contributor or a sponsor for our event, which is probably a good thing. And we're all aware of the conflict of interest training that we have to take on a semi-regular basis from the community board perspective. But luckily, I'm not the organization that will facilitate these things. We have a separate nonprofit that the community board created, the Friends of Community Board 2, who help sort of vet the who help pay for our event. And for the people who donate there, I couldn't begin to tell you how they screen for things, but I'm grateful for their support, and I'm pretty firm in my belief that it's nobody who's ever presented a liquor license or another application before the community board.
Thank you. And then my last question. You had mentioned your first year, you started off with a smaller event and you've grown to a larger event. Could you give us a budget range from the first year to where you are currently?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the one constant you have is like the $800 to $900 you're going to have to spend, which I think is actually not that bad of a deal for 40 tables and 120 chairs. On top of that, you're probably looking at about $500 worth of advertising and printing fees and maybe you can cut some money off of that along the way. And then, depending upon what kind of DJ that you have, maybe you get lucky, you can have somebody do it for a few $100s. Maybe you might have to spend, $500, $800, $1,000. DJs are artists and they each have their price. That's the ballpark of the things that you need to pay for this event. So at most, you're looking at having to deal with, maybe $2,500 worth of expenses. You can obviously go on top of that, and there's always going to be an element where people are going to have to dip into their own pockets a little bit to help contribute to the event. I think what we found is that most of the time you get 5 to 10 people engaged from the board. People will want to do one thing or another, and may want to give a little bit extra to help support the effort. And oftentimes one year, one of the insurance companies was able to give us a DJ. So you have experiences like that along the way. You just got to kind of see what you got with your vendor population. See what kind of businesses are in the area that might be interested in helping to contribute. You can always try to find a grant from either a local politician or a local business or a local nonprofit. We haven't actually been able to go that route with our event, but I've seen these things come up, and I imagine there's got to be some kind of opportunity that you could potentially get there. And it's definitely an option as well as a community board to find an elected official, and they might be able to help you get your event up and running too. The only thing I will say there is that you're going to be dependent on the elected official for their list of people, and you may not have as much insight into the group of people who sign up to come to your event, which, one of the great things that we've been able to accomplish is that because we set up an Eventbrite is that, I know everybody who signed up last year, blast out an invite to all of those people to come back to the next year. So you have kind of a recurring group of people.
Sure, sure.
Oh, I have here a from, sorry. Yeah, so my name is Cam Ramos. I'm just here trying to express that we are having a community health and resource fair as per the Sunset Park Lions Club. So the event will be held April the 27th from 9:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. I know that in the morning it can usually be an inconvenience, but senior citizens in our community to attend the much more earlier. So you are all more than welcome to attend. It's a great fair. It's not only just for health, but it also provides resources be lacking in. Okay, so it's great for everyone to attend. Again, my name is Cam Ramos, and I'm representative of Sunset Park Lions Club. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else has any other questions for Fran?
Hi. Thank you so much for all of those insights. I have a few questions. Were there any surveys that the community board came up with that were distributed in the health fair?
Well, you mean like at the health fair to the people who were attending?
Yes, because like for us, we struggled with up-to-date deal. We were mostly going, I think it was from 2018, and then the community health assessment from NYU, but I was just did you come up with any surveys?
So we haven't been able to get like a great survey out to the people, but I think that's a wonderful idea and like something that, absolutely you should try to pursue. And we also have struggled to have community health profiles that get up to date. I mean, I've been trying for a year just to get the Department of Health to come back to my committee. So it's been that's always an uphill challenge, but yeah, I mean, getting the people to come and give their information and answer some questions, I think is great. You just want to think about how are you going to collect that information? How are people going to spend their time? How are you going to get them to spend the time filling all of it out? And I'll tell you another thing that we're doing. I have some flyers for our event, so I will share them with folks and hope you come and check it out. There you go. Is you can see if you're one of the first people to RSVP, you get a free gift bag. So, one of the really successful things that we've been able to do is to tell the vendors you're a vendor, you've got swag, you've got additional materials, bring those materials to the park. We'll put them in a bag. We'll give it to the people who show up, and people show up for these gift bags. And that have a little table there for your board. Maybe you have them complete your survey of different things, and then they get the gift bag to walk away with.
Another question, cleaning. Who is responsible for cleaning up everything at the end?
This isn't a great answer, but it's you. It's you and it's your fellow volunteers. You're in the park, and the Parks Department, the Parks Department and the stewards, your organization, the friends of whatever park that you're in, maybe if you establish a good relationship with them, they'll put out some extra waste baskets. They'll have some additional ways that people can dispose of things there. But ultimately, it's on you, the permit holder, to ensure that you clean up after your event. And that's a process of ensuring that you bring trash bags ahead of time, that you really do a good job that you treat it as if it's your home, so that you don't have things strewn out all over the place. But, you know, us and every other event provider that goes through Fort Greene Park, you know, we know that we got to meticulously go through and pick up every piece of trash from our area. And you know, you want to think about bathrooms too in that regard too, because like people are coming to this event, you know, people are going to have a place to go to the bathroom. Go to the bathroom, you know, a week or two beforehand, check it, make sure it's in order. You can contact the Parks Department sometimes ahead of time and have them clean the bathroom. Some of the bathrooms can get a little gnarly in those parks, and, you know, it's important to have something that isn't a complete eyesore for your community when you're having it, because otherwise people are going to leave going to go somewhere else for the bathroom.
Thank you.
Any more questions from anyone online, public? With that, thank you so much for coming and speaking to us and giving us your insights. Oh, okay, okay.
Pat, please unmute yourself. Pat, you can unmute yourself now.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize it was my name. My question is for Jonathan. Jonathan, were you planning a meeting soon to discuss a possible health fair?
Correct. That's true. Yeah. I'll definitely. This is the first step. You know, understanding what we're signing for, and from like this is pretty much planning and trying to see how can we do this.
All right, you can definitely count on me, but get ready for some hard work.
Thanks so much, Pat, for that.
You're welcome.
Rosie Moda, you can unmute yourself now.
Um, yeah, I'm excited for us to have the health fair, and I think just wanted to add to also work with our faith-based communities that we have in Sunset Park. Obviously, they can help do a lot of things. So just want to put that out there to clue in our faith-based community organizations.
Definitely take into account, Rosie. And with that, again, thank you, Brandon, for making the time and for putting all the energy to answering all the questions and for being open as well. And we really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Great. Yeah.
Thank you.
Come on out May 17th.
Thank
for
you.
Living Well, Living Strong, Fort Greene Park, 12 p.m.
Hey, thank you. That we conclude our meeting, and thank you everyone for
Wait, I
staying.
have one announcement regarding education. Really quick, sorry, Jonathan.
Go ahead.
April 25th begins the community engagement CECs. Voting begins for New York City schools until May 13th. So if you're a parent, please sign into your NICSA account and vote for the people who are going to be a part of our kind of like a school board, but community engagement council.
Can we get that information? Like, I can talk to you offline about that, so we can distribute this maybe through the board.
Yeah, it's important. April 25th, voting begins
Thank you.
for people who make very important decisions for your school, local schools.
Only for public school students? That was the question.
Yes, it's up New York City public schools, DOE, not charter schools and not anything else.
Okay, so I'll talk to you offline.
And
so we
only
can-
parents can vote, and only parents can run on the council seat. And that candidate process is already closed. And
Okay.
you can see their website. We're in District 15 of the DOE CEC in Brooklyn.
20. Oh, 15 and
20?
20.
Oh,
Yeah.
15 and 20. Yeah.
I
So
have
it's
Yeah, go ahead, Rosie.
it's Pat. I have a question for Jeremy. Jeremy, Friends
Go
of
ahead.
CB7, any way to get that somehow involved? for a possible health fair?
I am not aware of that organization existing anymore.
Really? Uh,
Really?
so I guess my question would be, any way that you can find out if the 501c3 status is still there?
I would speak to your chairperson on that.
I appreciate it because at least that's a step in the right direction if we still have that. Maybe it's a changing of the board of directors or something, but that would be a great start. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Good
Thank
night,
you.
everyone, if that's it.
Yes, that's it. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming and for staying at the end of